Dinner at my parents' house always runs on choreography. Dad carves. Mom refills glasses. My sister Elaine claims the seat that catches the best light. Like she's still posing for yearbook photos at 38. I bring dessert because it gives my hands something to do. I told myself this time would be easier. My son Caleb had a good week at school. No calls from the counselor. No notes about difficulty regulating. He'd even practiced how to answer when relatives asked about his dad. He lives in another state. He'd rehearsed in the car. Neutral. Clean. No shame. We made it through dinner. Barely. Then came dessert lemon bars. Powdered sugar drifting like first snow. Caleb reached for one too fast, knocked his fork to the floor, and when he bent to get it, his elbow caught his water glass. It tipped. A small spill. Nothing dramatic. He froze anyway. That's the thing about kids who've been told they're too much. They start bracing before anyone speaks. Elaine dabbed her mouth with a napkin and gave that half smile she's perfected. Not loud enough to be a joke. Not soft enough to be kind. Maybe if your son had two parents, she said almost thoughtfully, it wouldn't be such a mess. She let the last word trail like she was being generous. Caleb's hand stopped midair. He didn't cry. He didn't argue. He just pushed his plate away. Powdered sugar smeared across porcelain. Dad sighed the way he does when the dog tracks mud inside. Let's just enjoy dessert. Translation: absorb it. Move on. I had absorbed a lot in this house. When my marriage fell apart, when I moved back for 6 months with a 7-year-old in a storage unit, when Elaine needed help covering rent after her third career pivot, when Mom's surgery bills stacked higher than anyone admitted, I'd learned that peace here meant silence. But Caleb was staring at the table like it had betrayed him, and something in me shifted from endurance to inventory. I walked to my bag by the hallway chair and brought it back to the table. Not quickly, not theatrically, just deliberately. Maybe if I began. Elaine's smile held for half a second too long. I set the folder down between us. It wasn't dramatic looking. Just a plain manila file with a bent corner. Dad's fork paused midair. Now, honey, I've held this too long. I said more to myself than anyone. Inside were copies, bank transfers, lease agreements with my name co-signed, a payment plan I negotiated with Elaine's former employer to prevent a lawsuit after she'd walked out mid-contract. Emails were sure she'd asked me not to tell Dad because wouldn't understand. I slid one page out and turned it so she could see. Maybe if your son had two parents, I repeated softly, it wouldn't be such a mess. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't look at Caleb. This wasn't for him to carry. Maybe if your business had two signatures, it wouldn't have defaulted. I continued. Maybe if your landlord had 2 months' notice, he wouldn't have called me. Maybe if your credit score wasn't built on my name, you wouldn't feel so qualified to assess my parenting. The room thinned out. Sound disappeared the way it does before a storm. Elaine's face drained in stages. First, confusion. Then calculation. Then the understanding that I wasn't bluffing. Dad cleared his throat. This is not the time. It became the time when she involved my son. I said. Caleb's chair scraped slightly as he shifted. I felt it like a pulse in my spine but didn't turn. I pulled another sheet from the folder. I'm not interested in embarrassing you, I told Elaine. That's never been my goal. I helped because you asked, because we're sisters. But if you speak about my child that way again, the transfers stop, the co-sign comes off. I will not renew anything, and I won't hide why. There it was. Not revenge, a boundary with paperwork. Dad looked at the documents like they were written in a language he'd refused to learn. Mom pressed her napkin into her palm. Elaine tried to laugh. It came out thin. You wouldn't. I would, I said. And I'd sleep. Silence spread across the table, not explosive, just undeniable. For years, Elaine had held the upper hand socially. She was the one with the polished hair, the curated stories. The husband who attended holidays in pressed shirts. I was the cautionary tale, the single mother, the one who came back home. But leverage doesn't always look like charm. Sometimes it looks like receipts. Dad finally set his fork down, not in protest, in recognition. "Enough," he said, but it sounded different now, less command. More concession. Elaine's eyes flicked to Caleb for a fraction of a second. Not apology. Not yet. Just awareness. I closed the folder. We're leaving, I said. Caleb stood immediately. He didn't look at anyone as we walked to the door. I rested my hand between his shoulder blades. Steady pressure. Behind us, no one argued in the car. He was quiet for a while. Then, small voice. Am I a mess? I kept my eyes on the road. No, you're learning. He nodded like that made sense. After a minute, he said he was still hungry. We stopped for sandwiches at home. He ate at the kitchen counter, swinging his legs like the weight had shifted off them. He told me about a science project he wants to try again. His words came easier. I sat across from him. The folder's still in my bag. The family will call. There will be discussions about overreaction, about loyalty, about airing private matters. They won't be wrong about the cost. But they won't call my son a mess again. The peace we had is gone. In its place is something less comfortable and more honest. Caleb finished his sandwich and asked if we could bake something tomorrow. Just us, he said. Just us. I agreed. And for the first time in a long while, silence in my house didn't feel like surrender.